Hello and welcome to Whence, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Robert Johnson, a York Rite Mason and Knight Templar. Well, this month is a busy one. I have a trip back to my old stomping grounds in Irvine, California for a wedding for my friend Scott. And then, a week and a half later, I'm going on a photo trip to Utah and Yosemite, and a few other spots. Then, the first weekend in November, I received my Scottish Rite degrees at the Valley of Chicago Scottish Rite Temple. I went to check it out for an appreciation dinner with my lodge last week, and I really enjoyed the building, the library, museum, lodge rooms, etc. Just a great building. I'm looking forward to furthering my own Masonic light, and many of you know that my story includes the Blue Lodge, Ram, Council, and Commandery. And I have waited a long while to petition the Scottish Rite, or Lodge of Perfection as it used to be called. So I guess what I'm saying is that if the show isn't exactly out on time, usually Sundays at 9:30, don't freak out. I'm just crazy busy right now, and this month is going to be hectic. I may even record them ahead of time. So last week in the episode number 63, I talked about Brother Travis Apollonius. I said he was a Jewish scholar. He kindly reminded me he is not a Jewish scholar, but rather an amateur scholar of world religions. And for the last year, he has focused much of his energy on Judaism. So I wanted to say sorry for the mix-up, and I wanted to correct that. Next, I also wanted to say that the new video went live. I hope the reaction is a good one, and also that I will work to make it available as an extra in the extras section of the podcast box application and the Android application. I haven't heard from Culver City Lodge regarding the small clip I used in the video. If they want me to take it down, then I will. But hopefully all is well. I've made 3 attempts at emailing them and even their Grand Lodge about it, but I haven't gotten responses. So hopefully they don't mind, especially since it paints a good picture for Masons and of Masons. For the next 2 weeks, Stitcher Smart Radio is having their annual Best in Show. This is the first year I've decided to go for it. So if you head over to the webpage, wcypodcast.com, click on the link that says vote for us. Basically, you just follow some instructions on how to vote, and then you vote. Please vote for Whence in the educational and learning section. Remember, you can vote once a day, so come back every day and vote if you need. I don't know what we win or anything, but I think it would just be pretty neat if a Freemason show won. Hopefully, I'm not the only one voting for the show. Now, this week is a paper that comes from the California Freemason magazine, which is available as an app, and I encourage you to check it out. Common Denominator, the divisive issue that's unified a fraternity, by Laura Normand. The topic of religion and Freemasonry is a coin with 2 sides. On one, open acceptance of differences in worship, on the other, faith-based membership requirements and rituals. In trying to reconcile this yin and yang, the pushing out of religious differences alongside the pulling in of so many faith elements, controversial questions emerge. This much is certain. Without its policy of religious tolerance, Freemasonry could not have succeeded in creating a new social space. Without its grounding in faith, it would be a different organization altogether. The shift from Christianity. Europe in the 16th century was a predictable place faith-wise, unless you were one of the small number of Jews who often hid their heritage for fear of expulsion. Your rulers and your neighbors believed in a Christian God. You believed in a Christian God, and it may never have occurred to you that elsewhere in the world another person might not. And so, in the first recorded charge of an operative Freemason in 1583, with the Church of England as the official religion in that country, it should come as no surprise that God is Christian, and that members must swear to worship him as such. That ye shall be true men to God and holy church, the charge reads, and you shall use no error nor heresy by your understanding or discretion, but ye discreet men or wise men in each thing. As Robert Peter writes in Freemasonry and Natural Religion, published in 2000 in Freemasonry Today magazine. The old charges have almost without exception a positively Christian character. All but one of the charges begin with a prayer to the Holy Trinity. But between 1538 and the printing of Anderson's Constitution in 1723, a lot had changed. This was the beginning of the Enlightenment, after all. When new ideas were being stoked throughout Europe, religious wars between Catholics and Protestants had torn apart the continent. Freemasonry, meanwhile, had evolved from a labor guild into a speculative fraternity of brotherhood in contrast with the religious and political turmoil of years past. And when James Anderson was asked to set down rules to govern the new society, he left a man's faith open to interpretation. As the first charge concerning God and religion goes, but though in ancient times Masons were charged in every country to be of the religion of that country or nation, 'tis now thought more expedient to oblige the Masons to that religion in which all men agree, leaving the particular opinions to themselves, that is, to be good men and true, or men of honor and honesty, by whatever denominations or persuasions they may be distinguished. In other words, the fraternity would not be divided by religious differences. Good men and true by whatever denomination. Anderson's careful language started a new chapter in Freemasonry. It effectively opened the fraternity to men of any faith. It established a culture of religious tolerance that today is so ingrained in Masonry that we cannot imagine the fraternity without it. But at the time, it was radical. In fact, David Hackett, religious historian and author of the upcoming book Freemasonry and American Religious History, to be published in the summer of 2012 by Princeton, proposes that Anderson's first charge may not have been meant to be so radical, not at first at least. The original idea of Freemasonry was to span Christianity, Hackett says. Freemasonry was meant to be a cross-denominational across Unitarians, Presbyterians, and Episcopalians. As a Presbyterian minister, Anderson himself was a dissenter separated from the Church of England. Whatever the intentions, the expanded membership requirements drew the first Jew to the fraternity by 1732. It was only a matter of time before the fraternity became known as a haven for all good men of any creed. And that drew some unwanted attention. To conciliate true friendship, careful readers of California Freemason will recall past articles exploring the persecution of Freemasons. See Freemasonry Confidential, June-July 2011. Almost every instance of persecution can be traced to the fraternity's policy, or lack thereof, regarding religion. By openly accepting and thereby validating different religious beliefs, the fraternity placed itself at odds with the dominant religious ethos at the time, the Catholic Church. In 1738, the papal bull from Rome announced that attending a Masonic lodge would be punishable by death. A wave of similar denouncements swept across Europe. Switzerland, Poland, and Sweden forbade Freemasonry on penalty of death. Lodges were closed in the Netherlands and in Spain and Portugal. Masonic libraries in Russia were shuttered, and influential Freemasons were expelled or imprisoned. Yet, even as Freemasonry was driven further underground, new members continued to join with perhaps greater motivation to guard the secrets of their brothers. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the new colonies were forming, many under the leadership of men who were Masons. Individuals who might otherwise have remained at a perpetual distance were bound together, and the colonies reaped the benefits. Freemasonry was the first group to form organizations that involved community leaders from different religious backgrounds, says Hackett. It was foundational to American society. In understanding America as a place that brings together people from different ethnic and religious backgrounds to form a new entity, he adds, Freemasonry led the way. Questions about church and lodge. A lot has changed since then. Wars have been fought, cultures have overlapped, and modern media makes even secret fraternities not so secret anymore. But by and large, society has not lost its suspicion about how to characterize the Freemasons. Tough questions remain. As a former Grand Chaplain of the Grand Lodge of California, Robert Winterton has heard most of them. Isn't Freemasonry a religion? What about your rituals? Don't Freemasons worship a great architect of the universe? And looming in the subtext, if you're not a religion, why all the pretense? Winterton has been the pastor of 6 Baptist churches and the senior pastor in L. Cajun's Trinity Baptist Church for the past 43 years. He's seen many church parishioners join the lodge, and just as many lodge members join the church. He's also seen how diverse the topic of Freemasonry and religion can be. Every once in a while, a couple will come to the church and love it. They'll get involved in everything. Then, all of a sudden, they discover that I'm a Mason. And they leave the church. Winterton repeats this softly. They leave the church. Answering for the fraternity, Hackett points out that although Freemasons rarely claimed that their fraternity was a religion, many, both within and outside the fraternity, recognized the Brotherhood's religious character. Most religions talk about practices, rituals, some coming together to affirm common beliefs. So, if you have a belief in a supreme being and you participate in rituals, then on the outside looking in, Freemasonry starts looking like a religion, Hackett says. Here is where non-members, and occasionally members, conflate the two. In its title, Symbols and Ritual, the fraternity is saturated with religious references. But upon closer inspection, these are signs of the times in which the fraternity was created, and they're not all that unusual. Somebody says you have to be a religion. You have an altar. You have a Bible. You have a chaplain. You have funeral service. Winterton says, my answer to that is, so does the Marine Corps. Others say, you have deacons. You must be a religion. My answer to that is, deacon is from the Greek diakonos, meaning laborer or servant. That's precisely what the deacons are. They serve in a church, and they serve in the lodge, he continues. Isn't it true that members put Masonry above their families and their religion and their nation, they ask? Here Winterton pauses for emphasis. The answer is no, specifically not. Your membership is not supposed to interfere with your family, religion, or nation. Masonry as a religion? To have a frank discussion on Freemasonry and religion, it is wise to acknowledge straight out. Everyone interprets religion differently. Even the word can mean two different things to two different people. To one, religion is a loose spiritual awareness. To another, it is a set of well-defined doctrines. Hackett confides that even the academic world has yet to agree on its own working definition. So, it's difficult to tackle without language barrier of sorts. Most of the time, because of its cross-denominational underpinnings, Freemasonry actually uses this to its advantage. Members can interpret the fraternity's teachings within the context of their own religious experiences, and, more often than not, it enriches these experiences. But on the question of whether or not Freemasonry is itself a religion, the topic becomes murky. Both Hackett and Winterton acknowledge that, at the very least, it was never meant to be. And for his part, Winterton warns Masons against using the fraternity as a substitute for religion. Yet with a membership in the millions, Freemasonry is seen through almost as many prisms. When I interviewed Hackett, he was insistent on this point. All Masons are given the beliefs and practices, and they interpret them as they wish, he told me. Over the course of history, you can always find Masons who claim that Freemasonry is a religion, the handmaid of religion, or not a religion at all. Winterton seconds this observation. Anything that is practiced with great regularity can be a kind of religious practice, he says, and some Masons say, well, Masonry is my religion. I don't need another one. Those are the members I invite to church, he adds. We talk about the hereafter in our ritual, Winterton says firmly, and we tell a man to seek a relationship with God, but not through Masonry. This is the undeniable difference between Freemasonry and religions. Freemasonry has no specific religious requirements, nor does it teach specific religious beliefs. In a Masonic lodge, you don't proselytize your religion. You don't even discuss it. Belief in a supreme being. Every young initiate in the Boy Scouts of America takes an oath. On my honor, it begins, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law. The Scout law requires a Scout to be reverent toward God and faithful in his religious duties. Scouts even earn religious emblems by participating in special church programs. So while Freemasonry may have been the first organization to require a belief in a supreme being, it wasn't the last. Yet the fraternity's faith requirement still raises eyebrows. As recently as 2009, the subject captivated the Mason in Dan Brown's best-selling thriller, The Lost Symbol. For centuries before that, it stoked persecution and conspiracy theories. The question has always been, if Freemasonry is not a religion, or at any rate isn't intended to be, why does it require its members to believe in a supreme being? The academic and the spiritual leader offer two versions. Hackett points to historical context and what looks an awful lot like pragmatism by the fraternity's leaders. Prior to 1700, people always believed in God because there was no other way to think of it. Belief in God was part of reality, he says. After that, by emphasizing beliefs in a supreme being but not particular boundaries, it allowed Freemasons to form a unity that's hugely powerful. From inside both lodge and church, Winterton sees it a little differently. If you do not believe in a supreme being and a life hereafter, your promise is not as strong as someone who believes he will answer for his activities in a later life and to a higher authority, he says. You don't have to identify who your God is, Winterton says. But For those who believe in a supreme being and take an obligation on the holy writings, it means more. There's another piece to this. If you believe in a supreme being, you recognize a certain code of ethics, one that it is not of mortal mold. Every Mason acknowledges that this code exists and that it is bigger than his individual beliefs. He strives to conduct himself by its standards, timeless and true, and no matter what iteration of God he worships, he swears his obligation on it. That's why, whether in the aftermath of a bloody papal bull, the shifting terrain of a young United States, or the modern trappings of present-day California, when a Mason sees a square and compass on the wall, he knows the men gathered there share his code. He knows he can trust them wherever in the world he is among brothers. And again, that's from the August-September issue of California Freemason magazine, which is available as an iPad app or on your iPhone. It may even be on the Android market as well. I'm not entirely sure. I actually have it for my iPad. And speaking of mobile devices, please remember to check out our app, which lets you listen streaming or use the Stitcher Smart Radio, which is a great way to listen, especially since they send us $1 to keep the lights on when you use the promo code Whence with no spaces. Both of those also offer a way to download and listen so that you can even be airplane friendly. So again, check those out if you haven't. Of course, the benefit to the app is the bonus features that you'll get. Downloadable extras like PDF books, PDF papers, videos, wallpapers with Masonic themes, all for your mobile device. This week's famous Freemason is Billy Pierce. Walter William Pierce, born April 2nd, 1927 in Detroit, Michigan, is a former left-handed starting pitcher in Major League Baseball who played most of his career for the Chicago White Sox. He was the team's star pitcher between 1952 and 1961 and was named the American League's top pitcher in 1956 and 1957 after being runner-up in both 53 and 55. A 7-time All-Star, he led the American League in complete games 3 times despite his slight build, and in wins, earned run average, and strikeouts, once each. He pitched 4 one-hitters and 7 two-hitters in his career, and on June 27, 1958, came within 1 batter of becoming the first left-hander in 78 years to throw a perfect game. He was one of the principal figures in Chicago's fierce rivalry with the New York Yankees. Particularly notable were his matchups with Whitey Ford, with the 2 left-handers opposing one another as starters 14 times from 1955 to 1960. Pierce's record suffered from pitching so much against New York, who he had faced more often than any other team. After joining the San Francisco Giants in 1962, Pierce played a pivotal role in helping them win the National League pennant, going 12-0 in home games and getting a 3-hit shutout and a save in a 3-game tiebreaker against the Los Angeles Dodgers to clinch the title. His 1,999 career strikeouts were the 5th most by a left-hander when he retired, and his American League total of 1,842 ranked 9th in league history. He also ranked 10th among left-handers in career wins, 6th in games started and games pitched, 8th in shutouts, and 9th in innings pitched. He holds the White Sox franchise record for career strikeouts, 1,796, and his club marks of 186 wins, 2,931 innings, and 390 starts are team records for a left-hander. Billy is a member of the Valley of Chicago and spoke at the new building's dedication. In August of this year, Bill Pierce was recognized by the Scottish Rite for his outstanding contributions to humanity by receiving the 33rd degree at the Supreme Council session in Chicago, Illinois. That's it for this week. Please remember to check out the Midnight Freemasons because it's always full of great content, and as a contributor, although notably not as good as a writer as the rest of them, I truly am lucky to be on the same website as such great talent as that of the Midnight Freemasons. I believe you will find some of my work up there again very soon, and I am working on a piece for them which will detail my visit to the Valley of Chicago's new temple, including some pictures. So visit our website at wcypodcast.com for links to all our stuff, including our social media links. Follow us on Twitter at Whence, and find us on Facebook. I hope you all have an awesome week. For Whence, I'm Robert Johnson.